there is a transition into this state of enlightenment from ignorance. And so let's talk a little bit about this transition. And I would say the transition is when you break into true concentration, when you start to, and you'll know when you have true concentration in your meditation. And I know I've talked about this in the past, but let me just again bring it up. And that is, concentration is not something you do. It's not that you sit there with your furrowed brow and try to clear the mind or try to experience something. It's not about that whatsoever. So when I use the word concentration, when Patanjali uses the word concentration, his entire first chapter is about concentration. It doesn't mean making an effort. This is effortless mind meditation, right? And so concentration is above all effortless, because it's not something you do. It's rather a state that you experience. It's a state of being concentrated. You can look at the mind. There's different layers of the mind. There's the surface of the mind. And at the surface of the mind, you'll never have concentration. The conscious thinking level where we hang out all the time during the day, you will not have concentration at that level. It's not going to happen because it's too diffuse a state of consciousness. It's very diffuse. And it doesn't have the power. And that's why I was saying, I think recently I used the analogy that you could say most people's minds are like a blunt instrument. It's like a pickaxe. And so that's at the surface of the mind. But then as you meditate and you go to subtler levels, then it becomes maybe a sharp sword. And then finer yet, it becomes like a razor blade, like an X-Acto knife. And then finer yet, it becomes like a surgical laser with intense focus and just pinpoint fineness. So you can't make the pickaxe into a surgical laser. It's not going to happen. But you already are, you have that surgical laser within you at that finest level of consciousness, pashanti, right? Ultra subtle level of thought. So by coming to that ultra subtle level of thought, then concentration is gained. And notice I say it's not that you concentrate, it's that concentration is gained, because that level is so blissful that bliss has a way of holding the attention. So, we're always our mind is drawn by happiness. If you think this is going to give you happiness, the mind goes this way. If you think this is going to give you happiness, it goes that way. As long as it's giving you happiness, you'll stick with it. When it stops giving you happiness, then the mind starts to wander and look around for more happiness. So when the mind finds bliss consciousness, intense bliss, then it gets settled. And not only settled, but it starts to get absorbed into that. It starts to get really concentrated on that if it's intense enough bliss, because it wants more and more of that. And it senses, after all this searching through all these different directions I've gone throughout my life, here I found something that is really promising. Here is something that is intensely blissful. And so it goes right into that. And that is concentration. It's a state. There's this saying, and I don't even know where I've read this, but many times in various scriptures, they'll say like wood is permeated by the element of fire, right? That fire just permeates wood, but it's not apparent. You look at the wood and you don't see fire. But if you take a magnifying glass and you focus the light on it, it ignites that fire value in the wood, and it can start to ignite and burn. And like that, all this is bliss consciousness. It's divine bliss consciousness. And by focusing our concentrated attention on something, then the divine value of that ignites. And that is why Patanjali devotes his first chapter to concentration because it's the basis of enlightenment. You don't get enlightened without that state of concentration. In the 23rd verse, Vyasa, in his commentary, says, with the onset of concentration, then liberation is imminent. So that's why I say the transition from ignorance to enlightenment is the onset of concentration. And so you'll know when concentration happens, it's unmistakable. Your mind becomes much more powerful, infinitely powerful, seemingly infinitely powerful. That may be an exaggeration. Nothing in the finite can be infinite, but it feels infinitely powerful. It feels like the power of a surgical laser, at least. And so that's a very big transitional point.